Have you ever wondered what drives the passionate entrepreneurs and interesting people in the hunting, fishing, and outdoor industry? Well, I did, so I set out to meet them. Aldo Leopold said, "There are those who can live without wild things and those who cannot. These are the exclusive interviews with those who cannot." My name is Kasey Mock. In 2008, I turned my passion for wildlife into a career when I launched our hunting firm, Fever Pursuit. Our family of companies has grown and now includes wildlife management and ranch real estate sales. I get to work with some of the best people and top ranches in the country, and I want to share their stories of adventure, failures, and the business principles that have led to their success. This is the Bucks to Business Podcast, presented by Mock Ranches. Our guest for episode number 16 of the podcast is Justin Atkisson, owner of San Juan Outfitting in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. Justin's a top outfitter, world-class elk caller, a sure-enough top-end cowboy and mountain man, to the T. You may recognize Justin from TV. He's been on shows like Primo's Truth About Hunting, Antler Insanity, and Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation's Team Elk guiding hunters like Cameron Haynes. What you may not know is Justin's also a very accomplished business entrepreneur. He's got a master's degree, and he's got a lot of experience in real estate investing. I had the privilege of hunting with Justin's crew in the Weminuche Wilderness last fall. It's one of the greatest adventures of my life, and I couldn't wait to get Justin on the podcast. I think you'll get a lot of value out of this episode, and I know you'll enjoy Justin's stories. If you do, please take a minute to give us a review online and share this episode so others can experience it too. Thanks for tuning in. Episode number 16 starts right now.
Well, Justin, you're the owner of San Juan Outfitting, and y'all just acquired Crazy Horse. We've got a lot of mutual friends, and so it was fun to hunt with you guys last year. Y'all packed us into the Weminuche, and man, awesome trip. Went flawless. The only thing that didn't go flawless was our shooting. So everything on y'all's end was great. Man, I'd love to expand on SJO, and I've been following you for a long time. You've hunted some of the best private ranches in the country, the Cielo Vista, which recently sold, Bobby Stuff at Hill Ranches, and now y'all focus mostly on wilderness stuff in the Weminuche. But right. Tell us about San Juan Outfitting and Crazy Horse. How y'all are operating that, what your services are.
Yeah, San Juan Outfitting, this is our 5th year with it. When we moved back to Pagosa Springs, which is the hometown I grew up in, we were really looking for, we looked at a lot of stuff, private stuff, but we kind of I grew up packing and have always had horses and team ropes and all that. And so we really wanted to have a wilderness outfitting company. And anymore, you can't just acquire those permits. You have to buy an existing business. And so San Juan Outfitting came available, and it's just been a perfect fit for us. We operate through the summer in fly fishing trips up in our camp on the Continental Divide, and then we go into archery and first rifle up there, and then we take that camp down and we transfer down to the lower camps for the later rifle seasons. But yeah, it's just been, I got to say we're really blessed to have great people working for us. Most of them I've known most of my life, and they're just solid people and good values, and that's made it probably the easiest. That's been the best thing, I guess, for the business is the people we have working for us, which is great. And but yeah, we start in early June and we go all the way through August with our pack-in fly fishing trips, and then go into archery through September, and then go first, second, third rifle through mid-November.
What have you seen as the biggest obstacles being a business owner versus when you started out guiding? Because that's how I ended up here. My uncles have all been in the outfitting business or the ranch management business here in Texas, which means you're a full-time outfitter on ranch. And so my dad's a full-time guide. He guides fishing trips at the coast. So we've always grown up in that outdoor industry. And I started guiding like you when I was in high school, and decided I didn't want to be a guide forever. So, how do we turn this into a business? And that's when we started booking hunts through our firm, and that's then progressed into land and wildlife management, now into real estate. So it all started being a guide, but I still, like I told you earlier, I'm still envious sometimes of that packer, of that guide that gets to just go enjoy the pureness and the virgin experience of going out and hunting, helping somebody accomplish their goal, being outside a lot, not having to worry about the business part of it, or the business finances, or employees, or health insurance benefits and cash flow and replacing equipment. I don't know where about any of that. Just being out. My only worry each day is, am I going to find the deer or find the bull? And is my horse going to pitch when I get on in the morning?
Right.
Tell me the biggest challenges and obstacles y'all have seen in owning a business, because you've got partnerships and y'all have been through acquisitions, and all those things come with components that I don't think they're unique in different industries. So talk to us about that, Justin.
Yeah, guiding for 15, 18 years. I loved it. Always knew that I wanted to have my own outfitting business. And then, you get it and you kind of look back and go, wow, it was a lot easier just to be a guide. You come in, you get all the glory, you're out.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, this is nice. But, I feel like we've made a good transition. And I think we've found a good balance. Obviously, I'm not as young as I was. So as much as I love to guide, I've kind of found a balance of being able to be out there and enjoy those times and just say, this is my getaway and I'm going to enjoy it and soak it up. But then trust my guys when I'm not up there and be more on a management, kind of position. But, it's had its challenges for sure. I would say, like you said, figuring out your hard numbers of, after running it for 5 years, you kind of figure out what it takes, how many horses it does take to run the level we're operating at. And when we started, we didn't want to do it part-time. We wanted to, there's a lot of outfitters that don't use the days they're given. And we were like, hey, if we're going to do it, we're going to go all out. So our goal was to book completely full, if possible. And when I say full, not necessarily on the days that we have available, but full for us. And we've always been committed to management and a quality experience. And what I mean by that is there's definitely outfitters, and I'm not bad mouthing them because they have their business plan and what their goals are, but they'll put 8, 10 guys in a camp, and I just will not do that. And that I think is from being a guide. As a guide, you don't want to be just packed with hunters and have not enough area to move around, and hunters that are stressed at the end of the week. Or
you won't do that because if there's 8 guys in a camp, going in that not all of them are going to have a chance to kill an animal. Because there's not 8 bulls within walking or riding distance of one of those camps.
Right. And that's exactly right, Kasey. And I mean, for us, our goal was, we said, we want to operate 4 to 6 guys a week, but we want to go every single week. And we rotate around camps so we can give camps a break and try to take pressure off. And we really are careful with the way we hunt. But our goal was really to say, after 5 years, we want to have a 50 to 75% return client or referrals from past clients. And we felt like if we could do that we would have something, because even if a guy doesn't kill an elk, I don't want him to say, man, I never even had a chance. I want him to say, the food was phenomenal, the fishing at camp was phenomenal, the guides and the horses were unbelievable. I had 3 elk in front of me and it just didn't work, but I'll be back next year because of the quality experience. and you just can't do that with 10 people in camp. And so for us, it's 4 to 6 guys a week, and that's what we wanted to be, and kind of the level we wanted to be. And I think that has done well for us because we spend a lot less money in going to shows and marketing as much, and that kind of offsets what we could have made if we'd have run more guys to camp but had to find all new guys to come hunt each year. And so that's worked out pretty well for us. And like I said, I would credit probably 2 things to our success. My wife Mary is phenomenal at administration, and she handles everything so well in the office with the administration stuff, and that has been huge because that was her background, so she kind of fell right into that. And the second thing would be the guys we have. I mean, they're employed year round, which has been a real blessing, just because most outfitters, it's hard to be a guide for 3 months and then have a normal job the rest of the year. So those guys will just find work and then they can't come back and guide, and outfitters are looking for new guys. We've had the same crews for the whole 5 years, but that partly is due to the fact that we keep them employed year round with our construction stuff. And so it's great because it really allows us to have kind of a team spirit, and everybody works well together. Everybody likes each other. Everybody has the same faith and values, and that I think I would attribute that to probably the what has made us the most successful is the people that we have employed.
Well, that's interesting. So you've diversified out, and y'all have a construction company running the summertime, I guess, that keeps you. That's neat because your guys, I guess, they know they can depend on each other back there in the wilderness because they've been working and depending on each other all year. And most of the outfitters that I know or work with, their guys are contract work, doing it in their off time, or they're taking a break, or maybe they just day work all year. They may, work on some ranches, work oil field, knock around a side job so that they can go hunt. That doesn't take away from their ability to hunt. I think it's nice that you're able to employ family people, though, that can count on that income and count on you guys to provide them a good opportunity. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's worked really well.
Do you think that's allowed you to be more selective with who you've hired? That's another question I wanted to ask you is how do you find talent? I think in a lot of successful businesses, once a guy has a background and he's proven that he can deliver a service, now you've got a clientele built up, you've done your financials, and you got a solid business plan, you're moving forward, having some success. At that point in a lot of businesses, the kind of people that you're able to hire is your next limitation. That becomes your ceiling of achievement, is your ability to hire good people that can replace you in the job, right? So you started out as the packer and the guide, and you're no longer the packer and the guide, and you may even have guys that can hunt and pack better than you, which would be actually a good thing. And at least in our business, if I can hire somebody that can sell real estate better than me, that can produce content better than me, that can console with landowners better than me, then our business grows. I just have to continue to be able to give them an opportunity. So do you feel like that's two-part question? You feel like that's allowed you to be more selective of who you've hired and attract talent? And the second part of that is, how do you find these people? Because it is kind of a lost art. There was an article I think I shared with you on Facebook, or maybe you shared it with me a month or so ago, about the art of packing becoming a lost art. It's not a whole lot of people that if you were to ask them today to go hook that pack train together, put those frame packs on, saddle the string of horses, and we'll see you back there in about 6 hours. There's just a few people that could get there in the world. And I'm saying that not all of them is who you want on your team. So talk to us about how you find your quality people and source talent.
It's been real similar to our hunting and our booking of our clients. A lot of those we have about 8 people that work with us, and 6 are full time. The other 2 are part time, but they work with me in the construction throughout the rest of the year. And 3 or 4 of those were right there with me when I was growing up. We lived in a different world. Our dads would drop us off at a trailhead when we were 10, 11, 12 years old with a couple horses and a couple pack horses and say, "Okay, B, I'll meet you back here, Monday." And
wow,
we had the freedom to go do that stuff because that's how we were raised. And so, some of the guys that are working with me today are guys that was right there with me doing that when I was 10 all the way up through high school, and we were doing that. So I knew I could trust them. I knew they knew what they were doing. There was a little bit of process to go through. It's one thing to do those things yourself and just kind of wing it. And then there's a whole nother level when you have the liability of people's lives and customers and hunters and fishermen that are depending on you to give them a safe experience. So there was some,
so
to speak, and us coming up with policies of saying these are set in stone. This has to happen, and this is how we operate. And then there's other things that are more gray areas where you just say that's your judgment in that situation. But those guys I knew I could trust, and the rest of them are either people that they knew or friends of friends that they wanted to move to Colorado and they had experience and they kind of sought us out. And we've been pretty selective. We could have hired 20, 30 different people through the last 5 years, but I don't believe that any of those people would be with us full time or on a consistent basis. I think they'd be in and out, and you'd never see them again. And that's kind of been our goal, is to create a long-term situation where people that love to guide and pack and do those things and are good at it, they can actually make a living, instead of loving it. And so they do it for 3 months and then they struggle the rest of the year. And we try to, like I said, we're kind of like a big family, but we talk investments and retirement and, Roth IRAs and those things together, because I want them to succeed. I want them to look back and go, man, I got to do what I love for 25 years. And I actually came out good. I put myself in a position where I'm not struggling to pay my bills. And so, and I think that's big
awesome.
key, is you give them something, or you give them a way to do what they love, but also to be successful. And you got a lot happier person that wants to stick with it.
Did you have formal training in business, or how did you get that perspective on?
Yeah, I got, my degree was in business finance with a minor in administration.
Oh, no kidding.
I started by
surprise.
Yeah. So, always been big into investment, real estate investment, and we even do some of that with our guys, as far as like a spec house or part ownership, where we kind of all can go in together and they can start getting ingrained in some investment stuff. And so that's kind of the two things in my world that, it's always been outfitting, and since college it's been real estate investment, construction stuff. So tell
me about your real estate investments. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do y'all, is it mostly spec houses, or do you buy and hold some stuff? And then if you will tell, how do you let your guys in on that? Because I think there's only so much you can pay somebody to be a packer. I think we all understand that. There's only so much you can charge a hunting client too. So it puts a limit on what we can actually make in the hunting business. But that's super cool what you've done, because you've gone ahead of that and said, okay, but together we can create bigger opportunities. So how have you done that?
Well, and that part of it's just the partial ownership stuff is just developing now. So where we live, it's really starting to boom. Pagosa is kind of an untouched mountain town. It's not over touristy, as far as it's not like a Breckenridge or Vail. So,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely becoming a lot more popular, and those opportunities are coming. So our focus right now are spec homes. And that's where we're giving, actually coming up this spring looks like the first, on the spec home side of it. We're going to be able to give them an opportunity to say, we're going to do a house because we all work together, and then get, a percentage of the profit. But in the past, we've kind of had a wide variety of investment stuff from just vacant land lots to long-term rentals and then as well as a lot of fix and flip was the main thing we did. I did a lot of that. I started in Colorado, then I did a lot of that in Tulsa. And we, when the market crashed, we were.
Is that how you know Greg Gansko?
Yeah, exactly. I met Greg at a keynoting in Tulsa, and we became friends. And that's.
I'm going to take less of you now because you're buddies with Greg.
Well, you could use that term lightly. So
Greg's a good friend.
Yeah,
man.
that's
awesome.
I lived in Tulsa for 7 years, and then moved back. So, but
Greg's a great friend of mine.
Oh yeah, he's a good guy. He cracks me up. He tells me every year he's coming out, and I just laugh and say, "Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it." So,
well, Greg and I actually talked last year about planning a trip together to come out and either do maybe a fly fishing pack trip with you, or the two of us coming out and spending some time with you, because we connected the dots that both of us thought highly of you, and I think highly of Greg. He's a very good friend and definitely a hustler. So we talked about coming and doing that.
That'd be a blast.
Do you prefer the flip house? Do you prefer that's kind of the world we're in, and I'm looking more into residential stuff. My business is all ranch stuff. Of course, most of those have a house on them, but our business is all the ranch business. We're looking at subsidizing that with some real estate investments. Doesn't make much sense to be in the real estate business if you're not investing in it yourself. So, do you prefer the flip stuff, or do you prefer the spec homes, the buy, hold, and rent? What's your preference on real estate investing?
Our goal when we got into it was to buy, hold, and rent, and to pay those houses off and have a portfolio at the end of it that would be a form of retirement. Unfortunately, when everything crashed, we were sitting holding a lot of rentals, for not a lot in some people's standards, but we had 40 some rentals, and it was really overwhelming to just think how we're going to get out of this. I mean, there was a lot of prayer that went involved with that, because it was like, geez, man, we're going to lose everything. And I gotta say, by God's grace,
so they're vacation rentals then, and you're dependent on the vacation market?
Well, no, those are in Tulsa. Those are long-term rentals.
Oh, in Tulsa. Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so what happened is we had a pretty good handful of houses that were planned to be flip houses, and that's what I was doing. Is we would buy and fix up and either keep them in as rentals, or we would flip them and roll into other properties. And so when it crashed, we ended up with a lot more long-term rentals than we wanted, because we couldn't flip them, and that was the only way to pay the mortgage on them. And so, we really stuck with it, and fortunately we came out of it and didn't lose anything, and was able to hang on to them. And then when we were ready to move, we sold off a lot of them. We still have an apartment building up there in Bartlesville, north of Tulsa, and that's been a real good building for us. And so we have that, and now our focus is more the vacation rental. So our goal is to have a couple of vacation rentals. You can just accelerate so much faster how much faster you can pay them off than a long-term rental. And I like the liability people have when they're staying there versus the way the laws kind of can protect a long-term tenant almost where they have more rights in your house than you do.
You can't ever evict them.
Right. And I mean, you usually end up putting most of your profit back into fixing them back up. And so unless you're kind of in the high-end rentals, but there's not a lot of that anyways, because people that can afford high-end rent usually buy. So
they're going to buy.
Our goal now is to do spec homes and sell spec homes, as well as build a few of our own vacation rentals, which is a big market in Pagosa. So, that's kind of where our focus is. Our construction company does a lot more of the high-end remodels, just kind of unique projects. We just finished a 4,000 square foot barn. It was just a roof with open stalls, and the lady wanted to be a really custom house, and it's just taken on a whole nother level, and that's been really cool. So we just finished that, and that's kind of what we've been doing more with the company, is those high-end remodels, but on a personal level, we're more in the spec house and the vacation rental side of it.
And you do that with your brother still, or no?
No, he's gotten actually busier with the music stuff. They just got back from 3 weeks in Europe, and
awesome.
They've been traveling a lot more, and so he has actually started his own company, and he's building tiny houses. It fits his schedule.
I've seen him I've been following him on social media. That's pretty awesome. Dude, I told you I was pulled over in my truck. There's a guy mowing the grass, and I've had to move up. You heard me start my truck earlier. I've had to move up like 6 times because this guy's mowing the grass behind me, and he keeps catching me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So can I come up there at some point, Justin? If you got the time, I'd love to come up and talk to you about investing in some rentals in Pagosa. Maybe I don't know if there's any opportunity to partner or anything, but that's something Elizabeth and I have wanted to do. It's in our 5-year plan, is to buy rental property up there, place that we can come enjoy a couple weeks out of the year. Give the key to our pastors at church and to some of our friends, and tell them, hey, you only need a week away, go use the house. And then we would rent it the rest of the time and have an asset there. So I'd love to come up and visit with you about that. I had no idea that you did that.
Yeah, anytime. Absolutely. As long as we go fish a day.
I'm in. I'm in, man. We can be in the Durango airport in about 3.5 hours from my house. Maybe 4 hours by the time we lay over.
No,
and we can be in there.
Love to show you what we're working on, and it's a great market right now. Compared to a lot of Colorado, it's still very doable. So,
well, compared to right here we're at in Central Texas, we're the hottest market in the country. It's getting pretty thin to invest in real estate. There's opportunities. I'm not going to say there's no opportunities, but the stuff that I'm really interested in personally, the margins are pretty thin, and it's a little more difficult. Talk about some fun stuff, man. How do elk behave? We'll get back on the hunting topic. How do elk behave differently on private land, like Cielo Vista, hill ranches, some of the top ranches you've hunted, compared to public? It's like night and day.
Yeah, it is. Wow. I would say, elk are elk, and they want to act a certain way. It's almost like a public land. Elk are almost like a sneaky teenager that's still going to sneak out and do what they want to do, but they got to be a lot sneakier about it, And I think those
good way to put it.
Yeah, those elk on those private ranches they just act. You can count on them acting like elk are born to act. They're just a lot more vocal. Obviously, they have the management and the time to get bigger, so you just have a lot more of those big time bulls and bucks on there. And I think, but they're still elk. You're on private land. If you mess up or you don't keep your wind right, you're done. And so it's not like they're walking around like cattle. Where I hunted at the hill ranch in Cielo Vista, we worked our tails off, for what we got. But the thing, I guess that's how I was able to become kind of the caller that I am, is I was given that opportunity to be in a place where I could watch elk in action, and I could go from one bull to another. And if I messed up, I'd say, I'm not going to do that again. And I would go into another one. And you hear so many thousands of bulls bugling that you can start to discern what mood they're in or what they're meaning, and almost learn the true language, so to speak. And that's helped with the with the public land wilderness stuff, because you learn to read those bulls, how they, what their tone is and what their mood is, and you just call more conservatively in the wilderness, and you're more patient. You get a lot more bulls that come in quiet. A lot of guys will call, and if they don't hear them or a bull's not fired up, they move on, and 20 minutes after they move, that bull's probably standing right where they were. It's just a different deal.
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that I have made calling on public land. We started hunting elk and booking elk hunts. I booked elk hunts for 5 years before I ever went and hunted one. And we were real fortunate. We had some great outfitters that, took us under our wing and taught us the business. When we started our booking company, Fever Pursuit, now we operated under the same Mock Ranches company. But we started in 2008, and the vision was that we'd be 80% Texas and 20% Western states, Colorado, New Mexico, and wherever else. Because the majority of our hunts and majority of our clients were Texas-based, and I knew that market really, really well. Having to move up again because this dang lawnmower caught me again. But we knew that market really well. And it was, from day one, it's been exactly opposite. We've been 80% West and 20% Texas. And we have done everything we could to try and turn that, short of just exhausting a ton of resources. But I think what we found was I fell in love with the West, and fell in love with the way hunts happened out there, the experience, and the fact that it's more about the scenery and more about the getting in the mountains and challenging yourself. And it's more about that than it was the inches of the hunt and the inches of the antler. And so we just kind of stopped focusing on the booking side on the Texas stuff. And our management company is completely different. Our management company is, 100% Texas, and we work to manage deer herds and hunting operations on Texas places. But fast forward, I started hunting elk, and I remember the first hunt that Scott Willingham and I went on was in the San Juan National Forest up near Hesperus, northwest of Durango. And I had a deer tag that I'd drawn, archery deer tag. Scott had an elk tag. And we said, let's hunt together, because remember, my whole experience was private land, and we saw elk and deer in the same country. And you glass them up in a 5 or 6 day hunt. You could expect to get on a bull and get on a nice buck. And so I'm taking that context into public land over the counter elk unit. I've got to draw deer tag, but first thing we do, man, we just go get up on a knob and where we could see a couple of meadows and parks, and we start glassing. And I'm, a couple of days into this, I'm like, man, where are the animals at? They ought to be coming out in these meadows. This looks great. And we switched tactics on the third day, and we said, well, they're not coming in here. So we found the nastiest, gnarliest, steepest, furthest from the road stuff we could find in that unit. And we went to it, and we got on a bull the first day, and then we got on a big buck. And so we figured out the patterns of the elk were different. But then calling them, what triggered my train of thought is what you said earlier. So guys on public land will call, probably a lot of times overcall, but they'll call and then not hear anything, so they'll move on. And then 20 minutes later, that bull comes in quiet to where they were to check them out, and they're not there anymore.
Right. Exactly. And that's the biggest thing is when you overcall, those elk know, they know that no other elk around them are calling that much, so they know something's not right. And, so you just got to be conservative. And if one gets fired up with him, get fired up with him. But tended to, realistically, most of the time it's going to be very conservative and very patient. Whereas those big private ranches, you can get real aggressive with them, and you get more of the bulls, bugling while they're running and coming in just screaming. So it's a different experience completely, but yet adds to the mystique of the elk. You know what I mean? It's just like they're so versatile, and they're an amazing animal, and it's just, every year I hope to learn something new, because it's like you could hunt a lifetime and never be perfect in every setup, because
for sure. For sure. I've never had, I know you have, because you've hunted so much more, and you've hunted some better country than I have, but on public land, I've never just, walked a ridge and bugled off into a canyon and had a bull answer back. I've had hunters answer back. And to me, I think these bulls hear most hunters calling. And to them, it sounds like Siri in your phone sounds to you. She's speaking English, but you can tell it's not a person. It's not a person. And I wonder if those elk think, there's a hunter up there. He's speaking elk, but it doesn't sound like an elk to me.
Right.
So I've had some hunters answer back. We had a guy one time, we were walking a ridge where we'd seen it. We got on a bull, and this is in the forest. And we bugled and had a bugle right back. And I looked at Heath and I said, that sounds like a Primo's Terminator elk bugle. And he said, I said, it's too tubey to be an elk. But this guy was a really good caller. And, he had a good chuckle, and he had a good good amount of time between his calls. He wasn't over calling. And he was in an area where we had seen some elk before, across this basin. And Heath said, I think that's an elk. And so we kind of talked ourselves into this. This was an elk. And for 2 or 3 hours, we tried to set up and call this bull in. And we would progressively get a little bit closer and a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And finally, we got our glass and we looked, and we seen this guy over there. And I thought, that's when I kind of go with this Siri thing. I said, that sounds just like a Terminator Primo's bugle. And to an elk, we probably sound like Siri.
Oh, yeah, you can't mistake it. I mean, a lot of times. I've been fooled, too. I've been fooled where I told a hunter that's a hunter down there. And sure enough, it was a bull. I mean, I've been fooled that way, too. But, it's just funny the way, you almost can learn from other hunters just what not to do a lot of times. But, for me, I don't get many answers with a bugle, but I don't bugle hardly at all.
Mm-hmm.
In a 5-day hunt, I maybe bugled 2 times some weeks, maybe not at all. But I do get walking ridges and using certain cow calls, I will get answers. And I've always been of the school of thought of, and it's how you learn. I mean, if you get comfortable calling in bulls with a bugle and you got the confidence and know when to do it, when to be aggressive, then you can do it. I'm
like Corey Jacobson or somebody like him. He's a bugle guy.
He is, and yet he knows when to mix the two and when to, change it up. I love Corey. He's a great hunter, and he's a good caller. He just he is a bugle guy, And for me, if I can get one to answer a cow call that is similar to like what a locator bugle would be, then I feel like that bull is responsive to a call. I've got him. I might, I've got a great chance. And so that's more how we call, and we're up in an area where we don't have to have, or we don't get a lot of guys pressuring us or messing our bulls up. So if it doesn't work, it's just because that elk wasn't acting right, or we screwed it up. But yeah, it's the public land game is I mean, I can say if you're one of those guys that can go in and kill a bull every year on public land, you're a stud, because it isn't easy.
I killed a nice bull 2 years ago in the San Juan National Forest. We got in on his bed. We were probably, I bet we were 40 or 50 yards, maybe 50 yards from this bull when we set up. We knew there's a bedding area in here because we got on the bull there the year before. that he actually bugled. He had a couple of cows. He actually bugled to us. But this bull that I killed, we were walking this ridge, wind in our face. We waited. We were patient. We waited all day to go hunt this ridge because we thought there was a bull on it. Not because we'd heard him. There's usually a bull that summers right there. And we put the wind in our face. We started walking real quiet and as quiet as we could in all the down timber anyway. And we hear a bull raking a tree and wallowing. No noise. And so Heath McCullough did a phenomenal job calling this bull in. Heath backed off about 50 yards behind me, and Cal called, and I told him, I said, don't stop calling until I turkey call or come get you. In other words, I don't know how long it's going to take this bull to come out. So don't call for 5 minutes and stop and walk up here and see what I'm up to. And it probably took 20 minutes to get this bull to come up out of his bed. And you start questioning, is there an elk in there? Or what the heck is that? And finally, this bull chuckled a little bit. He never bugled. He just went, ooh, 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 and we knew we had one. And, 5 or 10 minutes later, he comes walking up out of there real quiet looking, never made a noise because he didn't want to tip the hunters off of where he was. He thought there was a cow coming in close to his bed, and he wanted to go round her up and bring her in. And I shot him. Then this last year, when we went with you guys, basically same scenario. The first morning, we went up into some meadows and up there by at Dog Rincon. Went up into some meadows and no elk sign down low. We found another camp, and so we said, let's go loop way, way up around this ridge, and there's an area we wanted to hunt. I'm not going to give my spot away, so it's this area we wanted to hunt. And it took us about 3 hours to get up in there. As a crow flies, it wasn't very far, but to get into it the right way took us about 3 hours to get up around there. And it was nasty, nasty. It had been really challenging. The area. It had been really challenging to get a bull out of there, I think, without a crew of 4, so you wouldn't have to make multiple trips. But same thing. We were cow calling. We'd stop. We'd cow call. We'd move up, 50 yards. We'd stop. We'd cow call and just going really slow. And a bull bugled to us just up the ridge. But I mean like a mouse bugle, just so quiet that I thought he was about 200 yards away. And so Jeremy Kaysen, a good friend, was with me, and we dropped our packs. Jeremy, really quick, dropped our packs. Jeremy got the Montana decoy out. He'd never elk hunted, so he wasn't a great caller, but he's a great outdoorsman and a great camper, great backpacker, hiker. He's a great hunting partner. So I just gave him a little hoochie mama push button, with your hand cow call, and a Montana decoy. And so, Jeremy popped the decoy out, and I was going to walk up the ridge about 40 or 50 yards from him, and I took one step and saw the bull, and he was, he's already 60 yards from us. And I think he was in his bed, and he was so quiet. And so we're kind of pinned down. The timber's too thick to shoot at him that far. He sits there and looks around. He bugles a couple times. And the reason I think he was there when we first heard him is because his bugle, when I could see him bugle, his bugle was just as quiet, so timid. Because he didn't want anybody down that ridge, a person down that meadow or valley to hear him. And he finally committed and came downhill. He saw the decoy, and he committed and he came downhill, and he got within about 15 yards of me. And I'm full draw at this point. Stops, vitals behind a tree, and he bugles loud this time. He's wanting to. He's kind of getting frustrated that this cow's not coming to him, and he bugles a little louder this time. Kind of right in my face, 15 yards. I'm at full draw, but his vitals behind a tree, and he was quartering too hard to shoot him in the chest. Too hard to shoot him broadside because there's no way I could get into his vitals. It had all been behind his vitals, but he wasn't quartering hard enough to shoot him straight on. I couldn't get one in that thoracic opening. And so he stared a hole through us for as long as I could hold my bow anyway. And I finally had to let down or shoot him in the eyeball. and I wasn't going to shoot him in the eyeball, so I let down. He ran uphill, and I made the classic mistake that we tell our clients. And, you carry that rangefinder around all week, dang it, use it. And I made the classic mistake. He stopped him with a cow call. I didn't range him. I guessed my yardage, and I drew back and shot right under him. Shot for 50, and he was 60. But he was a 310. He was a heck of a bull, man. I'd put him like a 310, kind of a 6x6. Great bull.
Wow.
Great bull.
That's a great bull for public, yeah.
Yeah, great bull.
Not very many huge ones like that on public.
Yeah. No, this is a good bull. You could tell he was a mature bull, and he knew the routine. He was a good one. If I go back next year, I'm going to that same ridge.
Oh,
hey, let's wrap up. I'm going to switch topics on you one time, and one last time we'll wrap up with this. Talk to me about the politics and changes that you see right now around public land access, particularly when we talk about federal versus, and I don't know how much time we can spend on this. It's really a whole nother podcast in itself. But
right.
Public land access, your take on that. Should there be more, less? Should we allow mountain bikes in there? Give me the 5-minute version of your take on public land access.
Man, I know politically there's a lot of stuff going on. There's some things that are happening in other parts of the United States away from us that if they go through could definitely affect us, because it's kind of set a trend. And unfortunately, to each his own, and everybody has the right to believe what they want to believe or whatever their values are. But unfortunately for the hunter, there is, such a huge, influence of anti-hunting that, there's a lot of people that would love to even just shut down completely the wilderness and those things. And I do believe it's driven by not, trying to shut down hunting. So I think we'll always be in that fight. But personally, I think the way it is right now is perfect. I love that there's national forests that give the recreationists, the mountain bikers, the four-wheelers, the hikers access to that stuff, and still be in public land. It's their land. It's their right to be there, and it's great. I love that there's different
levels,
aspects,
different levels
right.
of impact.
Right. But I love that, the wilderness is the wilderness, and I do not think they should allow mountain bikes. I don't think they should make it easier to get in there, because to me it gives somewhere for the people that are hardcore, that want the extreme and the ability to get back away and never see or hear somebody else, or motorized vehicles, or no cell phone service. I love that, because it takes us back to what it was like in the 1800s, and I love that. Whether it'll stay that way, I don't know. I hope it does for our sake, but like you said, that's a huge topic, but I would love to see it stay the way it is. I think it's a great mix, a great balance.
There's some organizations like Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, BHA, their only mission, they get involved in nothing else except for keeping public land access open. And they support those levels of access, keeping wilderness wild and not easy to access. And then they're very state division of wildlife, state parks and wildlife, state game and fish, that manages that resource. And so why shouldn't the state also manage the land that the wildlife is on? It makes sense, except for when you see that the state budgets cannot afford to manage that. They can't afford to maintain fire. They can't afford to maintain park service. We've seen that in Texas, even as affluent as our state is. We've seen huge cuts in park access, in parks and wildlife staff, in that being accessible to people. And what the next step is? The next step, if they do that with federal public lands, it's going to be looked at as a wasted resource, and you're going to start seeing oil and gas exploration and more timber harvest and selling parts of that stuff off. And we're going to look up in 50 years and we're not going to have it. And the whole context of our country and how it was settled, and having that wild, unspoiled place that 100, 200 years from now, when we're flying around in spaceships and crap or whatever happens then, there won't be that wilderness feel if we don't protect it. And I think it's so important to allow people the opportunity that are so engaged in technology in an urban environment to give them a place where they can go and see how it used to be and experience that wilderness feel. And once we degrade that, you can't get it back.
Right.
You can't get it back. If you cross that line, you can't get it back.
Yeah. And that's the truth. I mean, fortunately in our country we have way more public land, and I know there's people who say, well, you could still do what you want to do on half that amount of land, but the reality is, it's used as much by people from Texas and Oklahoma and New Mexico and California, and, as it is ourselves. And it is a resource, like you said. If they took it away and in 100 years they said, hey, we screwed up, let's put it back, it's not possible. You just can't get it back the same way the way it was once they go to development and changing it. So
yeah, you can't ever get it back. Let's end with this. Give me your wildest pack story. Biggest wreck you ever been on a mountain with pack horses.
Oh my gosh. We were doing the
That'd be a good rodeo story to end with.
That would be, yeah. Now everybody's gonna be scared to come out here. No, we
good.
We do,
you'll actually have some openings for me to come.
That's right. I always come up. We do once this summer. We do the Continental Divide trip. We go from Wolf Creek Pass to Silverton. It's 110 miles in 8 days. It's a progressive trip, and it is, I think, the coolest trip you could ever take. It is a lot of work, but you are on top of the Continental Divide the whole way, and to see that country like that is amazing. But unfortunately, kind of along the lines you were talking about, our budgets have been cut on trail clearing crews, and they've just not been able to keep as good a control over clearing those trails. And so there's a place called Pagosa or South River Peak, and after that is called the Knife's Edge on that ride. And the first year, I guess it's two stories. The one wasn't a wreck; it could have been, but it was an interesting time. But we came around the Knife's Edge, and there was a rock slide. And once you're on it, you can't turn around because it's 1,000 foot down, and the trail's 18 inches wide, and you can't turn a horse around in it. So the clients were freaking out. We got them off on the uphill side, told them to sit there, and it took us a couple hours to get a bridge kind of built with rocks across, and then we had to lead each horse across and hook them back up. And we had one mule go off. Thank God it was a mule, not a horse, because it landed on a little rock and just kind of balanced there with his pack on, and then we were able to get it to jump back up on the trail. But that's
a horse couldn't have balanced like that, huh?
No. This little mule had 150 pounds on her back, and she jumped 5 foot back up onto the trail like it was nothing.
Wow.
But it's that section of trail is pretty hairy. And the next year, coming over South River Peak, it's same deal, washout, and you're coming down the steep peak, steep switchbacks, or real sharp switchbacks, and we the trail started to give as we were going over it. And fortunately, we got over, but the pack string didn't, and our whole pack string went all the way down. They probably went 500 feet down. So we lost. We were fortunate not to have a horse with a broken leg or kill one, but we lost everything, all the gear, everything.
Wow!
And I think at that point the clients are going, "Is there a shorter way to just get home?" You got to encourage those people on that trip if they're not used to that, because it's like, it's good. It's gonna be tough. You're gonna see some stuff that's crazy, and you're gonna you've been in the saddle for 10 hours a day. But yeah, so we got into camp at dark and had to repack everything. Horses were cut up. We came back in. We had somebody come resupply with new horses and took those out. But that was quite a wreck. And those horses, they're all hooked together. So they just rolled until they're at the bottom. And
so
it was pretty scary.
They didn't like slide down and run down the mountain. They rolled down the mountain.
Oh yeah, that trail just totally gave out under them. And when one went, it took them all. And it was pretty scary. But not as.
Did they
scary
come back?
as
Did the Forest
somebody
Service or somebody come back in and redo that trail?
They did this year. We reported it, and they sent a huge crew up there and spent 2 weeks, I think, and totally rebuilt that whole deal. So
wow,
that's probably the biggest wreck we've had.
Could you go like pick any of your gear up, or it was all gone? It was on 2 feet of space for you to crawl down there and get it.
No, it was you could kind of hold on and kind of slide yourself down and just kind of move the stuff to the bottom to back to where we could get it packed up. I mean, we had some stuff ruined, but as far as everything we needed, we were able to kind of gather it back up.
Wow. You gotta have a little cowboy experience for that. When is that?
A little bit.
If somebody wanted to book that trip, how would they get a hold of you? When is it? And then same thing for an elk trip.
They can go to our website, san1outfitting.com, and the prices are on there and the schedules as well, or rough schedules. A lot of those are flexible.
San Juan Outfitting, not San Juan Outfitters, because there's a difference.
Right.
San Juan Outfitting, not San Juan Outfitters.
Correct.
Okay.
And they can contact us there. Our numbers are on there, but also the schedule and just a lot of pictures and information on what we do.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna be in touch. Schedule a time to come up and look at real estate, fish a little bit, and we need to get a trip on the books. I think for next year. I blew my ACL out this year, and we had a baby, so 2 things that kept me off the Elk Mountain. I am going to go sheep hunting in October, and we'll have a bunch of deer, but my September is going to be pretty uneventful. What's that?
Where are you sheep hunting?
We're going to hunt Audad sheep in Valentine with Jim Breck Bean.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I think we're going to go next year and do the over-the-counter Audad in New Mexico.
That'd be a fun trip, man.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go do that. But next year, we'll be back on the mountain with you hunting elk. I've got a couple of guys that are very interested in going. A guy that works with me, and then, of course, Scott and Chris, Heath, I'm sure want to go back. So we'll be in touch. What can I do for you, buddy? Anything I can do from here?
Not at all. You've been awesome, man. We get calls all the time, people that know you or heard from you. Yeah, we look forward to having you back.
Good. Well, let's stay in touch. Y'all be careful out there, getting trails ready, and I'm sure y'all are gonna be packing camps in and clearing trails here for the fall hunts. So y'all be careful doing that and stay in touch. I really appreciate you getting on, Justin. Thanks.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
The Bucks of Business Podcast is presented by the land specialist at Mock Ranches, a leading farm and ranch real estate team with Keller Williams Realty, representing discerning buyers and sellers of premium farm, ranch, and land throughout the state of Texas and abroad. Have you ever met with a real estate broker and come away thinking that their pitch sounded common and stagnant, stale? You won't have that aha when you meet with one of our land specialists. Mock Ranches utilizes an industry-leading, innovative global land marketing platform that has proven to sell properties faster and for more money, even those that have been on the market and become stagnant. For a free consultation on how we can help you accomplish your land buying or selling goals, get a hold of us at mockranches.com. In September of 2017, Hurricanes Harvey and Irma devastated the Gulf Coast of the United States, causing billions of dollars in damage and misplacing millions of families. Fortunately, volunteer organizations stepped up in a big way, and Mock Ranches is a proud partner with KW Cares. If you're looking for a great place to contribute funds where you know 100% of it are going to get to those who need it, consider redrelief.org. Redrelief.org is a link to KW Cares, which is our nonprofit disaster relief organization. And I'm going to give you some stats. In 1 week alone, we had over 4,000 volunteers on the ground, contributing over 60,000 volunteer hours. We helped clean up 150 homes in places like Katy, Sealy, and Rockport, distribute more than 10,000 pounds of food, and assembled more than 5,000 cleanup kits for volunteers. KW Cares has a goal of raising $20 million to put on the Gulf Coast, and we'd love to have your assistance and partner with us with redrelief.org. Thank you so much, and let's go rebuild the Gulf Coast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please follow us on iTunes and give us a review. We enjoy reading your reviews, and the ratings help us move up the list. You can also follow us on social media at Instagram or Facebook at Bucks to Business Podcast.